scariest.
Oh, that's scary.
Oh, that really.
Hello, everyone. This is That's Scary. My name is Jessica Johnson. I'm from northern Wisconsin, and I am here to speak with you about ghost schools and goblins and big feats and gnomes and aliens and skinwalkers and orbs and everything, all of the things. Let's talk about it. And yes, I said Wisconsin because that's how you say it. Because that's how people from Wisconsin say it. They don't say Wisconsin. If somebody that lives in that state tells you that's how you say it, then that's how you say it. Wisconsin. All right. Anyway, so this is the first episode. So we have a couple of things to address right off the top. So this may not be the podcast that you want your 7-year-old listening to, or maybe your Catholic grandmother. I'm an acquired taste. I drink, I swear, I scream about spooky shit. Let's just say I wasn't the most popular girl in high school. Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna be myself, so let's give it a try. Anyways, so I wanted to start this podcast because I've had a lot of my own personal experiences with the paranormal. I grew up in a haunted house in Superior, and those experiences have stuck with me my entire life. I debated on writing a book about my experiences, about, I don't know, doing other things. I've written to other podcasts, kind of like this one, about my experiences, but it never really scratched that itch for me, and writing a book just takes too much time. So I also am going to school and I work, and you know what? I love podcasts. And I've always kind of had this idea in the back of my head, and 'tis the season to be spooky. So I think I was just inspired, and so here we are. So as far as me being so relaxed about this topic, it can kind of confuse people. But I just want to make one thing clear, especially about this podcast, is don't mistake my casualness for not being real or honest about this shit. I can only speak for myself when I say this, because I will be reading other people's personal accounts with the paranormal or interviewing other people. But I can really only say for myself that my experiences were real. And I mean, this isn't creepypasta or some shit. This is my life. So you, of course, are free to believe or disbelieve the stories that I share with you. They are my own experiences, and I can't force you to believe anything. And honestly, I don't give a shit. But we are all living our own truths, and some things just can't be explained. And that's something that I've really come to live with. And I'm still learning today that people don't always want to hear about my creepy life. So hopefully you do, because that's what we're here for. So let's scream into the void in my closet that I'm recording in about ghosts together, and just really feed in to that obsession and scare the shit out of everyone else around us. Okay? Sounds good. So let's get into my first story that I want to share with you about what happened to me as a child, growing up in this haunted house. Now, let me also say, I will not say the address as to where this house is. Maybe someday I'll post a picture on social media um, of this place that I grew up in. But for the sake of the people that currently live there, I'm not going to say the address because I've had people ask. When I hear people ask me, tell me a scary story because they know I grew up in a haunted house or I mentioned something that, I have a lot of experiences. And they want me to just tell them something or tell me the most scary story you have. Well, I mean, it's hard to choose because they were all really scary. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I had a beautiful childhood. I had a lot of really beautiful memories. Um, but there's always like a darkness. There's always like a heaviness over me in this house. And I never really understood why. I thought maybe that's how everybody felt in their homes. Everybody felt like somebody was watching them all the time. But my parents, they never really believed me for most of my life. They never believed anything was wrong, or they just thought I had a crazy imagination. But I mean, that changed after I moved out, but we'll get into that. We're just going to go one story at a time each episode. And this is a story that I think that I tell usually one of the first stories that I tell people when they ask me for a scary story. Um, but before I tell it, let's get into the background of the house itself. So, I mean, it's in Superior, Wisconsin. It is, let's see, I mean, the history of the house is a bit murky. So, I was told that it was a farmhouse and that it was brought to town on a truck and placed in Superior when it was like in South End Superior when it was first being established. So this is a really, really old home. I mean, it's over 100 years old. It started off as just, a small house, and then my family bought it, and over time built onto it more and more. So there was, we added on a living room and entryway, and then let's see, then we added on, there was a attached garage, which was eventually over time turned into a small apartment that was attached to the house. So that was really cool. And then there was a basement, there was an upstairs. So it was a pretty large house. I mean, there's all different levels, all different kinds of rooms and places and lots of space. Over time got to be a really big house. And so my grandma and grandpa bought this house when it was in town, when it was smaller. And I think people lived there before my grandma and grandpa bought it when it was in Superior. And obviously there were people living in it on the farm that it originally was built, but I'm not sure who they were or anything about them. My grandma and grandpa bought it and raised my mom and her siblings there. And then I think my mom's brother and his family bought it for a while. And then my mom and dad eventually bought it from them and owned it for many years. And that's the house that I grew up in. I think when we moved in, I was about 3 or 4. So I was really young. Um, and so, I mean, this was in our family for a long time. And I mean, the house is estimated to be over 100 years old, so we don't really know how old it actually is. Um, so yeah, like I said, I mean, the paranormal activity that happened was never really acknowledged by anybody, except for me. And this is a story that I kind of like get some people who are skeptical about it, which is understandable. So let's just get into it. I was sleeping. I must have been in elementary school. I must have been probably about 8. Um, I was sleeping in my room, which was upstairs above my parents' room, and I was having a bad dream. And I don't remember what the dream was about or anything. And I sat up. Well, wait, backtrack. I didn't sit up. I woke up already sitting up, and I was facing the corner of my room. And I see my mom standing in the corner of my room. And I was really confused because she was in her daily attire. She had jeans, t-shirt on, and this really confused me because my mom would be in her pajamas at this hour? I mean, it was nighttime, middle of the night. So I was really confused. And she was standing there looking at me. And her head was turned to the side, kind of like cocked to the side. And a smile spread across her face. And it wasn't like her normal smile, or like hey, how you doing? It was like, it looked mischievous or sinister or something like that. Something like she was trying to scare me. And I remember just staring at her and waiting for her to say something. And she was staring back at me. And I said, "Mom, what are you doing?" And she didn't answer me. She just kept standing there staring at me. And so I kind of just was like, well, maybe I'm dreaming. So I rubbed my eyes really hard. And then I opened them up again and she was gone. And then I started screaming and crying. And she comes running upstairs and she says to me, "Well, what's wrong? Like, I don't understand." And I was like, "Well, you were just standing in the corner. Like, you were just here and now you're here again." And I just don't understand. And people often say, "Well, you must have still been sleeping. I mean, you had to have still been sleeping." Well, I have night terrors. I do. I still do get them to this day. Usually, though, it's the same thing. It's a man standing over my bed. Usually I can just kind of see the outline of him standing over my bed. And it's quick. I mean, he's here, I see him there, and then he's gone. And it doesn't scare me. I mean, it scared me the first couple of times, but now I know what it is, and I'm not freaked out by it. And it happens really, really quick. And I can move. It's not like the sleep paralysis thing or anything like that. So I know what it's like to have that kind of a dream. But this wasn't a dream. She was staring at me, and I was staring at her for a long time before finally, I mean, she decided to leave, or it decided to leave. And also, it really messes with me because I don't understand, like, why is it choosing to be my mom? Well, if let's say a spirit can be anything they want to be, it come in any shape or form, why is it choosing my mother? And why is it smiling at me like that? And this was kind of one of the first things, well, it was one of the most obvious things to me that was paranormal that happened in that house. I mean, we'll get into other stories, but this really stood out to me and still sends shivers down my spine and still creeps the shit out of my mom. And I hope it does to you too. But now that I told my story, I actually got to meet up with a friend of mine at a party and told her my project, what I'm doing with this podcast. And she said, "Well, I have stories about your house. And don't you remember this and that?" And I was like, "I don't remember," because a lot of my friends have had experiences at my house in my various sleepovers and things that we've done there. And those experiences don't stand out in my memory because they weren't as, big and impactful to me, I guess. They were smaller things. I mean, things would happen to me daily. So in order for it to still be in my memory, it had to be something really that would freak me out. So I'm planning on interviewing other friends of mine that have also had experiences in the house. And, like I mentioned, my mom and dad. But I don't remember every little thing. So if you hear me being like, "Well, I don't remember that," or "No, I don't recall," well, it's not because it's not true. It's just because so much has happened. Nobody can remember every little thing. But yeah, let's hear from Christina. We'll just
Fuck,
talk.
it's cold.
And I know. Tell me, tell me what you were just telling me.
Okay, so I remember we were sitting on your roof, and we were talking about spooky shit that happens in your house, and all of a sudden we see lights, like, up in the sky.
Because we're on the roof.
Yes, we're on the roof. Did I not say that?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just too...
I might not have said that. But yeah, they were darting around in the sky way too fast to be a plane and in random spots. So, yeah, they were like zooming all over the place.
Yeah.
But too quickly to be a plane, and then like too random to be a satellite.
How did we even react? I don't even remember.
We were
Like, were we like, oh, cool.
weirdly
air-
calm.
It's aliens.
Yeah.
Not them again.
We were very, very calm, and to the point when I look back, I'm like, that was weird. I feel like we should have panicked a little bit,
Yeah.
but we didn't.
So, did you say it came towards us?
Yes, it did. Like toward the end, it was like darting over the place, and we're like, oh, must be aliens.
Oh my god.
And then it came, like, it got brighter and brighter, like it was coming toward us, and we're like, what the fuck? But I remember not being scared. Like, it was a weird, almost trance thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember being scared, and I think that's why it didn't really stick in my memory, because it's just like, oh, look, an alien.
Oh, look, an alien, bye.
Yeah.
And then it zoomed off.
And there's like, you can tell the difference of a satellite compared to something that doesn't move like a satellite. Like a satellite moves at like a
Very consistent.
rhythmic, yeah, and it
speed.
has like a, does it have a flashing light or a red? I think it's just
Yeah.
a red light.
Red lights are planes. Oh. The satellites.
I knew that. I know all about that shit.
But satellites, like, they do blink,
Yeah.
but they have a very consistent straight line to the
Right.
path. And this one was just
That's how you
darting
know
all
it's
over the place.
Otherworldly.
Yes. But I also remember it because I thought it was weird that we weren't scared.
Yeah. Well, we were kind of fucked up in that way as well. Do you remember going skiing and just fucking bombing the hills? Like, there's no regard for
our safety.
our lives. And you went off that jump one time, and I was like, goodbye. You did not land it.
No,
Nothing
not at all.
broken. Like, people die from that shit.
Yeah.
So.
I think I was up there and I was like, I'm not gonna land this. I'm gonna roll this and just and roll.
Yeah. Powder everywhere,
Yep.
and she's gone.
But it popped up like, hey, all right.
Exactly. We were fucked up that way. Like, that's just what we did.
Yeah.
We did not care.
Yeah. I remember. Do you remember the one time when the radio went off in your basement? It was like the very first spooky thing that happened to me. Oh my god. Okay.
Wait, basement as in like where the apartment area
Yeah,
was?
yeah.
Okay.
Not your like really creepy
The basement.
Yeah, I don't want to go down there.
Surprising that was one of the only places I wasn't really scared of. I don't
Really?
know why, yeah.
That freaked me
Which
out.
is probably the oldest part of the house,
Your
too.
bathroom freaked me the fuck
Oh,
out.
I know. Which one? Like both of them, but the downstairs
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. We are podcasting
Yeah.
here.
How dare you? Yeah, no, it was like your birthday or something, and remember we would like sing karaoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was one of those nights, and again we were talking about spooky shit.
Of course.
That happened in your house, and I remember being like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like,
This was the first time.
yeah, the very first time.
Was it just me and you?
No, it was like you had a whole bunch of people. It was like Megan and Alicia and
Oh.
yeah, the like middle school crew.
Yeah. Shout out.
Yeah, but we were telling creepy shit again, and all of a sudden this
Welcome to
song-
my ghoul life.
And you're saying how like the basement was the most haunted place in your
Right.
house, and I was like,
It's comforting.
okay, one, okay, but two, why would you bring us here? This is the most haunted place.
I feel so at home.
Yeah, and then we hear this music come from out of nowhere, and we're looking around for it, and it's like in that like little bedroom.
I'm
You remember that?
now.
Yeah,
The fucking creepy bedroom.
the creepy bedroom. You walk in, it's an alarm clock that like
Yes.
hasn't been on in
No.
ages. Yeah.
I remember that. It was a fucking old
Yeah.
alarm clock. Like when my
One
grandma
where,
would stay there.
If you don't set it, it's not gonna go off.
Yeah.
And it was like it had been turned off for ages.
Oh my god, I remember that.
Yeah.
There's so many things. Like all I can remember these days are like the big events that happened to me. So it's like little shit like that just like comes flying back and I'm like, oh fuck, that's almost scarier than like the big things that have been with me for the rest of my life. Like, yeah, that's really good to know.
Yeah. I have one more.
Okay, yes, please.
It was you, me, and Savannah sleeping over, and your parents are gone. So it was just us in the house and your dogs. And we were sleeping in your parents' bedroom because they had that big ass bed.
Yeah.
And we were in there telling ghost stories, and the dogs were in there too. So like everyone was in this room. There was no one else.
Remember that.
And you're saying something, and we hear fucking footsteps
in my bedroom, right?
In your
Up above us.
bedroom.
Yeah.
And we're like, Jess, what the fuck is that? And you're like, oh yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah. That's because my parents would always think that I was pacing around up there. They're like, go to bed. And I was like, Mom, I was fucking out at 8.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I
That one
remember
probably, that was the moment I was like, okay, I believe you. I 100% believe everything you've ever told me.
And now I regret being your friend. How do I unsign the dotted line? All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
with us.
Thanks
all of us.
for having me.
All maybe 5 people that will hear this podcast.
Yeah.
Christina Case, everybody. Thank you. Okay, everybody. Let's hear a story that was submitted via email. opethat'scary@gmail.com. This was submitted by an anonymous person. They say names have been changed in this story. So, let's begin. My name is Casey, and my story takes place a little over 13 years ago when I lived in Minnesota. I was a 25-year-old, and I was living in a small town in the Iron Range near Hibbing, Minnesota. Side note, gross. Sorry. Nothing against Hibbing, nothing against its fine people, but bad experience. Anyway, moving on. Back to the story. I had gone to a friend's house for a house party. I believe it was his birthday. I had arrived, and there were probably about 15 to 20 people there. Around 10 minutes after I had arrived, someone started talking about this really haunted cemetery. I was not from the Iron Range originally. I am from Duluth, so I had never heard of it. I never delved into ghosts and hauntings or anything of that sort. I always believed it was just demonic forces at work, and for the most part still do. My friend Allie pulled me aside, who does not believe in any type of supernatural type of things, and said, I'm going to pretend that I am possessed, so if I act strange, I am just pretending. I remember thinking, that's kind of stupid, but okay. So I hopped in my car with my friends at 9 or 10 at night and followed the other 3 cars of people that decided to go check it out. All the while thinking what a waste of time. But it was something to do besides the normal drinking games we would most likely have been playing. Hibbing. It took around 15 to 20 minutes to get out there. You drive on this old dirt road and go around a small curve, and if you blink, you miss it. We pulled up to this very tiny cemetery that was surrounded by woods in the middle of nowhere. It must have had approximately 20 to 40 graves, maybe less. I can't really remember at this time. Allie then whispered to me quietly she was going into the woods, so make sure to bring Jay, our other really good friend at the time, back there so we could freak him out. The first few minutes, I walked around and trying to look at some of the gravestones when I came upon most of the people in the group standing in the middle of the graveyard, just talking about some of the things people have heard. I joined with them, and about a minute later, another person came running up and said, "Look what I captured." We all stood looking at a small cell phone pic where you could clearly see someone hanging from a noose in the trees. Yet the picture was black from all the darkness, yet you could still make out the silhouettes. She said she took it because she heard a noise. She then took another picture a minute later in the same location, and it was completely dark and could see nothing. Now a little note, back in 2006, 2007, cell phone cameras were not the greatest, but they still did a decent job at that time. While standing there talking about this picture, we suddenly all began to hear Native American drum beats. However, these drum beats were so peculiar because they were not coming from around us or from the woods. They were coming from under the ground. They were a deep sounding, and you could feel it reverberate from the ground. We all stood there in silence looking at each other as our hearts beat even faster. There is no way to possibly explain those beats. It was not man-made. The beating of the drums lasted for about 30 seconds, and we were all shook to the core and started talking in amazement. One girl was shouting and crying from the car that she wanted to leave immediately because she was so scared. Shortly after that, we heard a baby crying and someone running in the woods, yet we were all there. Except I remembered Joy waiting for me to bring Jay, our friend, into the woods so we could scare him. I told Jay we have to go get Joy. She's in the woods. We ran into the woods, and thankfully the moon was full and bright and we were able to locate her standing next to a barbed wire fence. Jay came up to her and said we have to get out of here, but she just stared off into space and did not say anything. I went up to her and quickly, in a hushed tone, said, "Joy, you need to stop. Things are starting to happen. You need to get out of these woods." But she just stayed there, looking up at the moon. I was starting to get annoyed that she was continuing with this act when things were happening. My thoughts kept going to the drum beats and how fascinated I was with it, and what was going to happen next. Well, we did not have to wait too long. While Jay and I were talking about how to get Joy out of there, he suggested knocking her out and dragging her out. That's dramatic. Which I half laughed and then realized how scared he actually was about the things that were starting to occur. I told him that we were absolutely not going to knock her out. Suddenly, we heard this half-demonic growl that I can still hear to this day. It was not human, and it was not an animal. Jay and I looked at each other and took off running, leaving Joy by herself in the woods. Oh my god. Everyone has that fight or flight response, and I have used both. However, our flight took off way before we could even register what was happening. Understandable. And as we were running, I remember losing one of my sandals and me yelling at Jay to wait up. To his credit, he did hold a big branch for me so I could pass before he dodged ahead. We ran to the group of people and told them what happened. We then talked about how we were going to get Joy out of the woods. A few minutes later, she came walking out like nothing even happened. We asked her if she heard the growl, and she said no. But I wondered why you guys took off like a bat out of hell. We all got in our cars and took off. However, my story does not end here, because I came back many times, and every time experienced some strange things that have happened. Joy and I went back a few nights later. Why? Although I do understand. I mean, you experience something and then you don't really know if you believe that it actually happened, and so maybe if it happens one more time it will confirm the fact that it was real. I don't know. I guess I would go back too, but common sense tells me I shouldn't. But, sometimes ghosts are just too much fun. Joy and I went back a few nights later. We pulled up, turned the car off, and rolled down the window and listened. Very quickly, we heard running. We thought it could be a deer, but the sound at first would be running away and then running towards us. Oh, God. We got out and immediately heard the baby start to cry. When we walked a little on the edge of the cemetery, but we did not have the nerve to go fully in there. We decided to get back in the car, and to my amazement, the car would not start. Now, my car was new and only had 30,000 miles on it, and there was no reason it should not have started. After trying to start it for the 5th time, it finally started. We came back many times over the year, and some of the things that had happened were a car would die, there was a baby crying, running in the woods, knocking in the woods, and knocking noises on the car. One of the weirdest things that would happen a few times we were there is the old truck that looked like it had belonged from the 1940s would drive by. We never could see the driver or even their windows rolled down, and it was not like you speed down the road. It would go about 20 to 25 miles, and it would usually be easy to see a driver. Well, one of the times they decided that we were going to follow this truck because it always appeared when we were there. My God, you guys are ballsy or just bored as hell. My God. Hibbing. We arrived and parked on the side of the road, and we did not have to wait long for the truck to appear. We quickly started the car and began to follow it. We were close, but not too close, however. We were catching up. The truck went out of sight when it went around the bend, but we knew we would be able to see it in a few seconds when we went around the bend. When we made it around the small bend, we saw that the truck was gone. We drove down the road back and forth looking for a small drive or another road close to a small bend, but we did not see one. We decided there had to be an explanation for this and decided to come back in daylight. The next day, we searched that road and did not see a road it could have turned down. In 2008, I moved to another state and have only been back a few times. I did not see the old truck, but I still have heard the running in the woods, the scratching, and the baby crying. Always the crying. This cemetery does not care if you believe or not. It is active, and I believe the more people that go together, the more activity you'll experience. There used to be a forum, I think in Shadowlands, that this cemetery was talked about online, and many different stories of what happened to other people. I have even posted about this there, but I think they remodeled the site and cannot find the cemetery thread any longer. Some of the things I remember people talking about were people running in the woods, a baby crying, cars that would not start, scratching on cars, temperature changes, a black cat that was seen before your car would not start. She never saw the black cat, she puts in parentheses. People's cars have been scratched and other things I cannot remember. I do remember reading on those threads that in the woods in the 1800s a bunch of lumbermen died, but no information was given regarding that. Since I do not have proof, I am going off hearsay regarding that info. One of the most noticeable things that you will feel when you are out there is the feeling that many are watching you. You are not alone, and it is not a welcoming vibe you feel. This cemetery is located on Zim Road and is called Little Swan. If you ever go out there and are brave enough to go straight back into the woods and you find a lonely sandal, that would be mine. All the times I have gone there, I always wanted to go back for it, but was never brave enough. And then she provides some links she found on the cemetery, and says not much activity anymore since they took the thread down on that site. So thank you very much, Casey, for sending me that email. I loved it. I love cemetery stories. I know I have been to cemeteries back in my high school days, around Halloween time, hoping to hear or see something, but never have. And so I always love hearing those stories where people actually do experience something in a cemetery, just because it's classic. I mean, it's a classic experience. So thank you. If you would like to send me an email, that would be amazing. Or if you know somebody who has a story and you would like to share it, send it to thatscary@gmail.com. And if you would like, also, we could set up an appointment where I can come and interview you in person, or we can do Skype and we can record it, or you can record yourself in your voice memos, like if you have a iPhone or something like that, telling your story and send it to me, and we can share it that way. Just because I am all about everybody sharing their stories and everybody getting to tell their truths and what they've seen. And I just think it's really important. And I think that so many people can relate. And if you have a story about this cemetery in particular, please share, because that would be really cool. So I got an email from a girl named Alex. And so for the final segment, we will listen in on that discussion that we had when we met up. I met her at a restaurant, and she told me that she had a story to tell me about a shadow person, and this really intrigued me. So go ahead and listen in.
Okay, so I was looking at your email, and you said that you have shadow people experiences, and I want to hear everything about that, because I watched, what was it? There was some ghost show, Dead Files. She's like a medium, and then there's an investigator that goes with her. Yeah, she freaked me out about, that's how I learned about shadow people, because she was like, they are the most evil people people in quotations that you'll ever meet. She's like, they're always trying to get you to hurt yourself or hurt other people, and tricksters.
They're usually very not good entities, and I can definitely see how. Thankfully, I never had a really bad experience with the one that seemed to attach itself to me.
Well, let's like go back.
But-
Like, where did you first discover?
Where it started was, it was actually, I don't know the exact address, but on the intersection of Hammond and Belknap, there's that tattoo shop that's right there on the corner. On the other side of that block, there's a big, huge white apartment complex, and it's got like a fenced-in yard on the side. My family used to live there, and my stepdad was lighting off big fireworks next to the police station, of course. And we saw a police cruiser go by, and he was like, "Oh no, Alex, go grab the tube." So I ran outside and I grabbed the tube and I threw it up, and I ran over to the window, and we shut off all the lights in the house because my stepdad didn't want to go to jail for fireworks.
Who does?
And I was staring out the window, just like, you know, watching for cops, I guess. And I was like 5 or 6 or so. And in the fenced-in yard, there was like a slight shadow in one corner, and he stood up directly out of the shadow. And I just kind of like, that's not a person. A person wasn't there when I was just out there. And he sprinted at me. And he kept coming and coming and coming, and he melted into the shadow that was right underneath the window. Thank you. And
I don't like this story. So he ran at you.
Yup.
From the corner of the room. So did he like?
It was
far, or was it close?
So
How close did he get to you before he resolved?
So like when you're looking out of a window, you can, and it's like at a ground level window, you can kind of see how like there's like that slanted shadow because there's still like slight light coming from inside your house.
Right.
He just like melted into that and just like fully disappeared.
I don't like it.
That was my first experience with him. Over the years, I decided to name him Jason.
Why?
I don't know, it felt right.
First of all, why name him? And second, why Jason?
Because he was there up until I was about 13 or so. So he was there for like 6-7 years.
And God
Following
knows how long
me.
before that.
Exactly. Like, who knows? He may be here now and I just haven't seen him.
Oh, you still live there?
He followed me through many houses.
No.
He attached himself to me rather than the building.
Probably because you could see him. Did you react at all when he first came at you? Like, I'm just saying he, like, just assuming that it's a man. I
Yeah.
mean,
There's no distinguishing features.
right.
It is just a dark silhouette. There was no face, no nothing. And he was very tall.
Why do they always have to be tall?
I don't
Tall
know.
and skinny and
It's
creepy.
very
I
scary.
hate it. It's like Slender Man, just like
Exactly. And I had told my mom and my stepdad, somebody just ran up through the window. Like, somebody is there. And they went outside and checked, and of course no one. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense, seeing as though he like melted into a shadow,
Yeah.
or whatever. And he would, I had sliding closet bedroom doors in that house, and the place was extremely haunted, and I don't know if it was from Jason or if it was just haunted on top of Jason. But specifically, something that I know he would do is if I was sleeping in my bed in the middle of the night, my doors would open and I would be called by him, and I would turn and I'd look, and there, in the darkness of the closet, there'd be an even darker silhouette.
So
And
calling you by your name, or just being like, hey, get in here. Like,
Alex,
no.
Alex, come on in, Alex. And I'd just either ignore it completely, or I'd get up and walk down an extremely long hallway to the couch. And whenever I did get up and go to the living room to lay on the couch, something that would always happen is he would get louder as I was leaving. And in that hallway that I had to walk through, there was just a single bathroom, and you'd like hear the toilet flush or the sink start to go on, and eventually he'd just stay on that side of the house.
You said he was getting louder. Was he like calling you louder as you were leaving? Like, wait.
It
Or
just
was he
seemed like it.
acting up.
It just seemed as though, like, when he was in the closet, it was more like a, Alex, hey, come on in.
Like, it's funny.
But then
here.
as I like left the room, it was still in the same tone. It was just louder. Like, it didn't seem strained like he was yelling or anything. It was just, it was terrifying.
I don't like it.
And after we had moved out of that place, my grandmother lived on 17th and Hewitt, and I started staying with her. And everything was fine the first few months we lived there. And then my Uncle Mike, who lived upstairs from us, shared an experience of a shadow person. And I didn't know if it was the same one, so I got the story from him. And he had said that he woke up to somebody saying, Michael, like slowly but surely getting more frustrated and loud. And so he woke up, and there was a shadow person standing at the end of his bed. And it continued to repeat his name as it came around the side of his bed. And he's like moving himself over the side of his bed and trying to run away. And then it just dissipated. And he immediately called my grandmother when that happened because he thought somebody was in his house.
So this was the house that you had moved into?
Yep.
Okay.
And that was the first experience of a shadow person in that house. I don't think it was the same as Jason, but 2 shadow people, 1 place.
Right.
And then after that had happened was when I started having more experiences with Jason. If I walked into the kitchen, there was my room on the right and had like a mini hallway. And then there was another mini hallway and it had another room and a bathroom. And that was right off the dining room. And then there was a doorway, like kitty corner from the last hallway that would go into the kitchen. So if I left my room during the night, anytime after like 1 a.m. and went to the kitchen for water or anything, Jason was standing in the bathroom. And he was taller than the doorway. So it was terrifying because it would just be...
I like that he's tall. I don't know why. I really hate it.
It's very intimidating.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it's an intimidation factor. But yeah, he would just be standing there doing nothing. And it got to the point of where like I'd start keeping water glasses in my bedroom and start walking the long way around the house to my grandma's half bathroom in her bedroom, which I had to go through the dining room, through the living room, through her bedroom, and then into the bathroom, just so that I could get water in my cup so that I didn't have to go back by that other bathroom.
It's so weird. Why would he just choose to stay there, especially if they have a higher consciousness, like to know, oh, she's gonna go the other way. Like, why wouldn't he just follow you? Like, why just pick that spot? Like, this is where I'm gonna stand.
Yeah, I wish I knew the thought process of that thing.
If there is one, I don't know.
And then after avoiding him for a few months, we lived in that place for like, oh my goodness, 4 years, 5 years. And so after avoiding him for a few months, I would be laying in my bed and I'd have like a nightlight going, all that fun stuff. And then I started to notice occasionally there'd just be a big black spot, like a shadow spot, that would go from my opening doorway of my bedroom and it would just go around my
Like a
ceiling.
saucer, kind of? Like
It was just like a big shadow spot, like something was like on top of my nightlight, but I'd get up and check and there would be absolutely nothing interfering with
so like
my
the
nightlight.
opposite of an orb. Like,
Yeah, it was just
a void.
a big void that was going across my ceiling, and then it would hover above my bed, and then it would shoot into my closet.
Why the closets? It's like they know. They're like, oh, where's the most terrifying place for this
Right?
human? Closet.
Yeah, it's like they always know. It's horrible. So that happened for a few months. And then I was like, okay, this is really creepy. I'm gonna start keeping my closet closed. And it was another one of those like sliding door closets. And I started keeping it closed. It didn't like that. So it starts slamming open my closet in the middle of the night. And then the orb would like jut out, slink across my ceiling, hover above me for a little bit, and go back in.
Showing me who's boss. I can open this friggin' door if I want to.
And then that was the point in time of where I like started getting into like more paranormal, supernatural stuff. And I was
You're
probably
like me. Because, I mean, other people, they're like, oh, well, you experience all this stuff. Wouldn't you be scared? Wouldn't you want to avoid it? Like, wouldn't that be the last thing that you'd be into? And it's like, I don't know why, but now it's all I can think about. So you want
Yes.
to learn more about it, I guess. Kind of have a
Exactly.
better understanding of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, this thing is scary. It is a shadow person. And it is obviously following me because the first time I saw it was years ago in another area.
Yeah.
Because at this point in time, I was probably like 9, 10. So I made a mixture of wax and salt and made a wax circle around my bed.
Where did you learn that from?
I just kind of like, I knew salt is like a good barrier item.
Yeah.
And then I was like, it can't be pushed away if it's waxed onto the floor.
Smart.
So that's what I did. And then after that had happened, when the closet would slam open and he'd come out for his nightly swirl around the room and hover, it dropped to the floor instead. The shadow did. And he raised from it. And he just kind of like hovered over me, but like not crossing the
So
line.
he didn't cross it. It worked.
He didn't cross it. But I think he was upset that he couldn't go directly above me anymore because it was like a barrier or something. So he'd stand there and he'd hover. And that's when I started to name him Jason. And I don't know why I named him Jason because it reminded me more of like, I think like Michael Myers, where they just kind of like stand there and very
Don't
slowly
say
tilt their
anything,
head.
and they move so slow.
Yep.
Like they're not in a hurry because they just know that they can have you if they really want to.
Yep.
So that's comforting.
And
it
so
makes sense.
I named him Jason because it was the creepiest name I could think of at the time.
Yeah. Sorry, Jasons. Your name is creepy. We're scared of you, and I'm sorry. Same
not
with
my
Michael's.
Also
And
Freddy's.
Freddy's, yep.
So whenever he'd do his hover thing, I'd be like, "Hey, Jason."
You talk to it?
Yeah. I mean, like, that was a tactic whenever I'd go to, like, the haunted ship or the haunted shack or anything. I'd talk to the people because it'd make them a lot less scary, especially if they had a name. And I don't know, maybe I thought if I could somehow befriend it, he'd stop scaring me.
That's smart.
Or he'd leave.
And how old were you at this point?
Like 9, 10-ish,
Okay.
somewhere
Wow.
around there.
Fearless.
So I started talking to him and being like, "Hey, Jason, how you doing tonight?" Creepy as usual.
How have you been? Just creeping?
Is the closet to your standards?
Yeah, do you need anything? Glass of milk? Oh my god.
And then eventually, I don't know, he just didn't scare me anymore after that. I was just kind of indifferent to him. Like, my grandmother was like, "Get that wax off of your floor." And so I had to remove the wax. But he would still hover. He wouldn't break the barrier that where the wax used to be or anything. And
That's weird. Well,
like,
I mean, that's like him respecting, like understanding
Yeah.
that that's what you're trying to do. Which is
And
weird if they say that shadow people are so mean and evil, don't you think?
exactly. So that's why I think like he was definitely a shadow person, but I don't know what type of shadow person, or like if there's other beings out there that can like present themselves as a shadow person, or maybe not all shadow people are as bad as everybody says they are.
Right.
So everything was going good until we started getting into like, me and my friends started getting into more like EVP and messing around with things we shouldn't.
Ouija boards.
Yeah. And suddenly, out of the corner of my eye and things, there'd be this little girl. And she'd be like all dolled up and cute and everything. Usually just wearing like a nightgown. And you just kind of see like a haze of her. It was like tinged with color, but not really. I don't know. Really weird.
Was she like old timey looking, or was it?
Not really old timey. It's hard to explain. Like, I wouldn't describe her as old timey, but I wouldn't describe her as like modern or anything either. She was just like,
She wasn't wearing like a SpongeBob onesie or.
no, it was just like a basic nightshirt.
Okay.
Like, went down to like past her knees.
Yeah.
And occasionally tinged pink, occasionally white. And I'd just see her randomly like in the sides of mirrors and things. For a long time I started to actually get very scared of mirrors and looking into them.
She scared you. It wasn't like.
She scared me because it wasn't like Jason, where like, oh, you're a familiar presence in my life now, and I talk to you, and all of a sudden there's this little girl, and she's just standing there. And every single time she was just standing there staring at me through the mirror.
Could you like see her expression on her face?
She was blank
Okay.
all the time, blank. And then one night, I laid down in bed. I had closed my closet door for some reason. I started leaving it open because he'd slam it open anyway. So I left my closet door, like I shut it for some reason or another earlier in the day. And I laid down in bed, and I was laying there, and I had this huge fluffy down comforter. And I felt something get onto the bed with me. And I was like, okay, that must be my dog. And so like I turned over to look at her so I could pet her. And there was an imprint of a child on my bed, in my comforter, like right behind my legs. Like a perfect small child body. And I just kind of stared because I didn't know what to do. I could feel the pressure on the bed. I couldn't see what was there. I could just see the imprint it was leaving. And I was just kind of like, I was stunned and just like, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm like staring down this imprint on my bed, and my closet door flies open. And black orb up to the ceiling, over to the foot of my bed, drops down. Jason rises up. And very slowly, I feel the form of the small child being dragged off of my bed.
What the hell?
Yeah. And like you could see like the imprint of it like moving off of the bed too. And then there was a thump at the end of my bed, and Jason flew back into the closet and re-slammed the door shut.
Weird.
And I was like, I still don't know what to think about that to this day, because I like, was he upset that another like supernatural being was like crossing a boundary? Or was he jealous that there was another supernatural being? Or was he just mad at it? Like,
That's really weird. I've never heard anything like that before.
I've never heard of them interacting or anything before that. And then just like feeling that and seeing that and everything, like I sat up in the corner of my bed and just stared at my closet the whole night. Because if he can do that to something else, what's stopping him from doing that to me?
Right.
Don't mess around with the paranormal unless you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because it can end up really bad.
Well, don't we all learn the hard way too?
Yeah.
I mean, kids are so dumb with that. And they sell the freaking thing in the Ouija board in this Target. Like,
In the toys section.
the toys. It's a toy. How fun. Open a portal in your house, kids.
Yeah.
Mom will love it.
Also, don't whistle at night.
Yes. Don't whistle at night.
Don't want to open up portals to the underworld.
That's right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, well, that is a wrap. Thank you to everybody who sent me in stories. If I didn't read them, just know that they could definitely and will definitely most likely be used in a future episode. Please remember to email me if you haven't already your spooky stories, or give my email to somebody who has one for me, opethat'scary@gmail.com. I can't wait to read more and to interview more people and to really get this going. So I'm really excited about it. I hope you are too. And sleep tight, bitches.
Oops, that's scary.
You said oops.
What's it supposed to be? Oops.
Oh.
Oh.